Welcome back. We are now going to talk about the economic developments in Egypt and how the economy in Egypt is now more resilient to internal and external shocks thanks to the economic reforms. Well, to shed more light on this, we have the pleasure to have this phone with Dr. Raouf Jaffar, Professor of Political Economy. Good morning, Dr. Jaffar.
Good morning, my dear.
Dr. Jaffar, how do you see the economic performance or evaluate it in Egypt in light of the economic reforms?
Well, one has to say that undoubtedly the economic reform that we have gone through the last years have built a very strong foundation for the Egyptian economy, and this is the reason why we could sustain the hard times of the COVID pandemic, and now with the unfortunate developments that are occurring around the world, again our economy has managed to not only to sustain but to improve and grow. So if we compare, for instance, the growth in the first quarter of this year to the performance of last year, we will find an improvement and a raise in the percentages of growth. And this means that we are on the right track thanks to the economic reform, and not only that, I want to add that in some sectors, like for instance, social sector, in health sector, we have seen considerable increase in the percentages. We have managed to reduce our internal debt. We have managed to reduce our deficit. So these are all signs that the economy is moving slowly but positively, and hopefully things will continue and rates will grow.
Yes, so Dr. Jaffar, as an expert, why has the economy become more, in Egypt, become more resilient to internal as well as external shocks?
As we mentioned, we have gone through economic reform, a very well-studied program, and we know that most of the Egyptians suffered a little bit during the applying this reform program, but it was imperative that we sort of correct our path, and Egyptian people have shown a very good spirit towards that, and this was the reason. I mean, money was directed into building the new republic, infrastructure projects in all aspects. We're talking roads, we are talking energy, we are talking everything else. On the social security, again, it was very obvious and clear the efforts that were made positively in this direction. One can mention the Decent Life initiative, of course, on the education, on the health, etc., etc. What I want to say is that the program was very well managed, and it formed, as I repeat myself, a very solid foundation for our economy.
Yes,
we have increased our production. We have directed a lot of our products into export, and this again represents very good signs in the improvement of our economy.
Yes, Dr. Jaffar, how do you evaluate the success of Egypt in dealing with the repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic, and at the same time Egypt was continuing in its development process?
We have, I mean, one again has to admit that the president and the government have managed the pandemic crisis excellently, and they kept a very delicate balance between closing down and continuation of production.
Yes.
And it became a role model. I mean, everywhere in the world are praising our dealing with this matter. The growth rates went down a little bit, but we were always on the positive side, and this in itself was an excellent performance. Everybody went down, and the rates were in the negative side. No, we have kept our growth rates in the positive side, and by the confirmation of the financial institutions. I mean, we are not just saying that, but we have confirmation from all financing and international institutions. They give us a vote of confidence in our economy, and they all rated our economy as positive, and we kept our grade as it was, and we are getting better by the day. So we have made a big effort, and during the pandemic, as I said, we kept a nice balance between working and not shutting down everything. We have directed, and this was a very intelligent move as well, a lot of our products to not only to self-satisfy us, but to export. And this again had a very positive impact on the economy. And by the way, we are now facing, after the pandemic is receding a little bit, we have seen the unfortunate happenings in the war between Russia and Ukraine, and how it affected the whole world, and the chain of supplies have been interrupted as far as gas, oil, and a lot of commodities. But again, because we have managed our crisis very carefully and very scientifically, we are still, and I'm sure we will get out from this crisis even stronger as far as the economy is concerned from before.
Ukrainian crisis that affected the global economy. What about your expectations for the future of the repercussions of that crisis on the whole world economy?
The longer it takes, the worse it is. And we are all praying that they agree and they come to their senses and they stop the conflict, because, as you said, it affects the whole world. Not only, of course, poor countries and emerging markets are more affected, but the whole world, without exception, is affected. We know that Russia and Ukraine are one of the very major suppliers of energy. Yes. Gas, oil, to Europe particularly, and this has been strongly affected. And of course, with the sanctions that have been imposed on Russia, it becomes more and more difficult. And as far as Ukraine is concerned, it is a huge supplier of commodities like wheat, corn, etc., for not only Europe but the whole world. And these chains are being affected, and it reflects, of course, on the price of oil and gas, and on the price of products. and it represents a problem for the whole world. Of course, emerging markets and poor countries are more and more affected, but hopefully we all pray that this conflict comes to an end sooner than later, because the more it takes, the worse it gets for everybody. So hopefully it does not take long to reach a settlement or a compromise or whatever you call it, but we have to see an end to this conflict, because otherwise the repercussions are getting worse and worse.
So, Dr. Jaffar, quickly, because we're running out of time actually, during the 2022 spring meetings of the IMF, Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund have praised the remarkable progress that is made by the Egyptian government in implementing its economic reform program. So, if you would like to shed light on this.
Of course. We've asked the IMF for another hand, for another loan, and they wouldn't have accepted to even consider unless they see and they are sure that we are performing well and that things are moving positively. And I'm sure that we will reach an agreement with them very soon. And I'm sure that this new agreement will reflect more and more positively on the growth of our economy in the very near future, inshallah.
Yes, I thank you very much for your time and for your valuable information, Dr. Raouf Jaffar, Professor of Political Economy. Thank you very much for joining us over the phone. Well, I thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for following me in this segment of The Breakfast Show. My name is Amal Mukhtar. I leave you with the rest of the segments of The Breakfast Show.